totally different story. If you have fiber optic and you've got the high-speed fiber optic and you have the line directly from your house to wherever it goes to, what's it called? Where does it go to the house when it's a priority line, Corey?
Basically, with fiber, you have this box, this dedicated box that can handle the fiber line, and then it gets carried a lot of times through high-end, maybe Cat 5 or Cat 6 even cables that can handle those massive speeds.
Yeah, well, when we talk to people on those lines like we do during a broadcast, that's one thing. But you get these other people that are on these VoIP, and you can tell. You can tell. Well, we hear an echo. Well, yeah, that's a giveaway right then and there. Yeah. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. All right, let's get back to the order of the day. I want to talk about the car hacking. And speaking about hacking, has anything happened with all the hackers that are still out there? Has anybody been brought to justice?
There have been many cases recently. It's kind of exciting. Just in the last few days, I've heard more stories about prosecutions for hacking than actual attacks, it seems, which is pretty rare. But I'll give you one example. 6 people were indicted this week for basically defrauding StubHub customers of $1 million. eBay is facing a class action lawsuit right now because of those breaches that expose customer data, and eBay is a very big target. I think if the class action lawsuit against them is successful, you're going to see more class action suits and maybe some actual accountability, which would be refreshing. And then Sony is settling with customers for $15 million. They're distributing those proceedings to users directly. With a lot of class action suits, you eventually get a check in the mail, but Amazon, Apple, Sony, they more and more have been distributing these refunds electronically or incorporating it in bills in some cases, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, people are being held accountable, so you know, it's not hopeless.
That's good to know. All right, let's get back to the cars that are computerized. One of my questions is that on the show here, we talk about the shift of the polar, where a negative becomes a positive and a positive becomes a negative. What's going to happen with computerized cars when this happens? Because the computers aren't going to work.
Yeah. If somebody hacks your computer and steals your data, that's a devastating thing. But if they take over your car, you're talking about risking your own life. And there's more scenarios that even the FBI are bringing to light. They're talking about people using these driverless cars to commit crimes, to carry bombs.
Yeah.
Can you just imagine that if they get a few driverless cars in the Middle East and start putting bombs in there? That's a very scary proposition.
So basically, these automated cars or computer-guided cars are just going to be like the drones in the sky. These are going to be drones on the highway.
It is. It's going to be a lot like that, and we'll see pretty soon as these get more and more popular. We're going to see what the damage is. Now, the other side of it is I think we're going to get better over time at defending against some of the negative repercussions. I think people were scared of cars themselves when they first came out. They thought cars themselves were going to be too dangerous. But you never know. We might have to beef up local police budgets to combat new types of crime like driverless cars carrying explosives. And the question will be, will we have the money, the resources, and the political will to make those type of funding changes to support those new kinds of crime-fighting activities? But we will see.
There's an easy way to keep that in check until law enforcement or the authorities have the budget in place and the hardware and software in place, these cars that we're talking about, computerized cars, aren't sold.
Yeah, that is a good thought. And it brings up a really general question. Too often we just give companies and governments, we just give them the pass to develop these new technologies. And we have this belief somewhere that technological progress is good in some way, so we just have to allow it. It's somehow inevitable, but really it's not inevitable. Maybe we do need to slow down as a planet and think about what we're doing a little more carefully before we put this stuff out there. And maybe that is one of the big positive changes we'll see in the 21st century. Maybe things will get so bad that we'll finally stop and ask these questions first before leaping ahead.
I agree with you, Corey. This world is moving way too fast. People are being inundated with way too much data. And here's something to think about with the computerized cars. We know what happens when people drive and text. What do what's going to happen when you have these people who are relinquishing control of their vehicle to an onboard computer?
Yeah, it's very
scary.
Yeah. Oh man, every single morning now I see people weaving in and out of traffic, stopping abruptly, not starting at the lights, and 9 times out of 10 it seems they have a cell phone in their hand at the time.
Here it's illegal to drive with a cell phone in your hand. You have to have a hands-free unit. But yeah, all right, I know the authorities are trying their best to control this, and God bless them for what they're doing. However, it's when you're driving along and you see somebody using their electric razor while they're looking in their rearview mirror, or how many times have you seen women put makeup on in the car?
Yeah.
That is scary.
Well, you probably can't control everything, but we're in a similar situation here. Just this past October in Florida, they did make it illegal to text and drive, but I haven't heard of a single person getting pulled over for that so far.
Oh, that is a big complaint here, that people are getting $250 fines. I say, just confiscate the cell phone. Never mind the fine. Just, hey, you were caught. Boop. We take it.
Actually, it seems like there was a case recently where a school teacher confiscated a cell phone of a kid and got sued for it. So our priorities are clearly backwards.
Yeah, well, don't get me going about using cell phones and iPads and computers in school instead of the old books, because I think that, the kids today, God forbid, if there is a polar shift, they won't know how to communicate. I've got a granddaughter who, I would say the majority of the day, she's looking down at her cell phone and texting than she does anything else.
Yeah, and it was a difficult decision for me, but I became so acutely aware recently of how much I was falling into that trap that I made the conscious decision to put the device down. When I'm visiting with my son now, I'm trying not to even bring the extras along because it's really having an impact on the way we relate. And I remember a trip recently. I was visiting my grandmother, and man, I was on electronic devices the whole time. We barely had time to talk.
I go in the car with Laura, and she'll say, "Do you have your cell phone with you?" And I look at her and say, "Why? You're here." We use it when we're apart from each other. But if I'm going shopping with her or we're going for a Sunday drive, I don't bring my cell phone. If it's important, they can leave a message, and I'll get back to them later on.
Oh, yeah.
And at supper time, I don't want anybody to answer their text phone or answer their cell phone, because to me, this shows lack of respect to anyone at the supper table. You go to restaurants and you see families that used to communicate verbally are now texting instead of paying attention. And in my opinion, this just goes to show the increase in the way that the family unit is falling apart.
It's a contributing factor, that is for sure. Yeah. And actually, I think it's making us meaner in some ways, because when you send a text or communicate electronically, you don't see the person, and all kinds of things just fly out of people's mouths. Yeah. And I remember actually when I moved from phone-based support to online chat support, I was initially excited, but the people in the chat forums, they were very mean.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We're much worse. They said things much worse than on the phone. And on the flip side, anything that you said could be misinterpreted more easily, because they couldn't hear the voice or the person behind it.
And look at cyberbullying. Look at how many kids are being victimized by cyberbullying.
Yeah, and I'm just shocked at how seriously they take it, because, something like Facebook, as much as I use it, I could take it or leave it, but some of the younger kids, they couldn't imagine going without it. It's just a part of their life now, and they take things very personally that wouldn't faze me.
I think Facebook, in my opinion, has its place in society. But the stupidity of the stuff that people put on their Facebook pages just blows me away. Like, I cooked six cupcakes today. This is what they look like. Who cares?
And Twitter is the worst.
Oh. Yeah, or here's another one. This is what it looks like from my front window. So?
Yeah.
Or look at the flowers I'm growing in my garden. Yeah. So? Now, am I wrong in looking at it this way? Or am I just one of the people who don't really care about what you think? I'm going to tell you anyway.
You're definitely an honest person. I will give you that. But to play devil's advocate here, one thing I do like about Facebook is the amount of family photo sharing.
Okay. All right. That is a legitimate use. I agree with you 100%, Corey, because it's a great way to communicate. It's a great way to keep in touch with your family. But do you really care about the lady who lives in, let's say, Anchorage, Alaska, who just baked 6 cupcakes?
It is funny. And I'm guilty, too, by the way. I spent a whole year posting what I had for dinner. And
all right, stand by, Corey. We've got to take our final break. Corey K., XZoneTechZone.com. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com.